The Olympian Gods, Lesson 2 of Greek Mythology. The Olympian Gods. You will use the information in this lesson to begin to fill in the gods and goddesses chart at the end of the lesson. You will also need to do your own research to complete it. The Olympian Gods. First, we have to explore exactly what we mean by Olympian Gods. Mount Olympus is a real mountain in the north of Greece. Gradually, it became associated less and less with an actual mountain and more with an imaginary place high above the earth. According to ancient Greeks, the gate to Olympus was made of clouds, and it was guarded by 4 goddesses, the seasons. Each god had his or her own dwelling place, but Olympus was home base. There were up to 14 gods considered Olympian gods. 7 of them were Zeus and his siblings, which are brothers and sisters, and 7 others were children of Zeus. Sometimes only 12 will be listed. The Greeks and Romans shared mythology, so you will find 2 names for most of the gods and goddesses. So I will post the link to the video here so that you can watch the short video about the different gods and goddesses. Our first god is Zeus. Zeus was the king of the hill. He was dominating, powerful, and had a soft spot for pretty women. He could be terrifying when angry. His symbols were the thunderbolts or lightning bolts made for him by the Cyclops, which were his uncles, the eagle, and the scepter or rod. You're going to need to copy down this information for your chart. Next we have Hades, or in Roman mythology was Pluto. Hades was the god of the underworld and of the dead. He was called the same name by the Romans, but they also sometimes called him his Dis or Dispater. He was Zeus's brother and married Persephone after kidnapping her against her will. He was gloomy and frightening. Poseidon. Next we have Poseidon, or Neptune as the Romans called him. He was Zeus's brother, and he was the god of the sea and also earthquakes. He often is shown with a 3-pronged spear called a trident that was made for him by his nephew and a fish. Hera. Our first goddess is Hera. She sits on the right side of Zeus and is his wife. Of course, she's his sister too, but that's the way it was on Olympus. Hera's Roman name is Juno, and she is the queen of the gods. She is the guardian of marriage and was well loved by the Greeks. It's kind of sad that she's the goddess of marriage, but her own marriage was so bad. She was often jealous of her husband's girlfriends and did mean things to them, even the ones who didn't want anything to do with him. But she could be tender and loving as well. The peacock was her symbol. In fact, the circles in a peacock's tail are said to be the eyes of her 100-eyed servant Argus. Athena. Next is Athena, or Minerva, the daughter who sprang fully formed from the head of Zeus after a major headache. She is the goddess of wisdom and war, and also the protector and namesake of the city Athens. She preferred reason to violence unless she was punished. She turned anarchy into a spider for bragging that she could spin better than Athena. She was very competitive and is often pictured with her helmet and a spear. She carried Zeus's shield, called the Aegis. The owl was her bird. Can you see it in her hand? Apollo is next. Apollo was a twin. His Roman name was the same as his Greek name. He was the god of the sun or light, poetry, music, and medicine, and he was famous for his oracles. They were wise women whom he gave his power to predict and interpret the future. He was very proud and also protective of his mother and sisters. His symbols were the gold bow and arrow, and he often appears golden and shining. He wears a laurel wreath in memory of Daphne, who didn't want to be his lover and prayed to Mother Earth for help escaping him. She was turned into a laurel tree. Artemis. Artemis was Apollo's twin. Her Roman name was Diana, and she was the goddess of hunting, chastity, and the moon. She protects women and small children, is fiercely independent, and particularly dislikes men. In pictures, she is seen accompanied by 3 hunting hounds, a bow, and a fawn. A fawn is a baby deer. Ares, or as he is known by his Roman name Mars, was the god of war. He would fight on both sides if possible. He was young, strong, and handsome, and liked to dress in battle clothes even when he wasn't fighting. Hephaestus, or Vulcan, was born lame and was further crippled when he was thrown from Olympus by his mother Hera in a rage. So she was very mad. He was the only Olympian with a disability. He was unhappily married to Aphrodite and worked as a blacksmith in the god's forge. Aphrodite. His wife Aphrodite, whose Roman name was Venus, was the goddess of love and beauty. She was born out of sea foam when the blood of Uranus dropped into the ocean. She was the mother of Eros and was irresistibly charming, fickle, vain, and competitive. Her symbol was a cestus or magic belt that made everyone fall in love with the wearer. Sometimes she would lend it to humans. This is a famous painting of the birth of Venus or Aphrodite by Botticelli. That's the picture on the bottom right-hand side. Dionysus was the partier of the mountain retreat. He was Zeus's son by another woman, who was driven crazy by Hera and her jealousy. Dionysus went all around teaching people how to make wine and having a good time. Eventually, Hestia gave up her throne for him, and he lived on Olympus. He was the god of wine, of course, and also vegetation. Hermes. Hermes, or Mercury, was the god of science and invention, but he is best known as the messenger of the gods. He is often pictured with a winged helmet and sandals. He is said to have invented the alphabet, boxing, and gymnastics. In this painting by Goldstus, you can see his helmet with wings. He's not wearing his famous sandals, though. That would be the painting in the very middle. Demeter. Demeter was the goddess of the crops and harvest. She is also known as Ceres, her Roman name, and sometimes Deo. Her symbols include a torch, a crown, a scepter, and stalks of grain. She is often portrayed with her daughter, Persephone, who is kidnapped by Hades and taken to the underworld. By the time she was rescued, she had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds, so she couldn't escape the underworld entirely. Her mother was so frantic that winter draped the land and no crops would grow. A deal was struck and Persephone was allowed to return to her mother for half of the year. So each year, when she returns to the underworld, fall comes, then winter, but when she returns to her mother, spring and summer come again. Hestia. Hestia was Zeus's sister and the goddess and protectress of hearth and home. She was also known by her Roman name Vesta. She was gentle and kind and was very popular with the Greeks. She didn't have a lot of adventures, so she's rarely pictured in art. So now, you're going to use the information that you've learned and 2 additional sources if possible to fill in the chart on the next page. This chart will also be listed in Google Classroom, so you're able to fill out the information to complete the chart.